Hey there everybody, and welcome back to Adventures Arsenal. So personally I'm a fan of the Legend of Zelda games, as I'm sure many of you are, and so for today we're going to be building something pretty exciting, the one and only Ocarina of Time. This will be an item that's capable of playing 5 different songs from the Legend of Zelda games. First up, of course, is the Song of Time, which will let you travel back in time to your location from 7 seconds ago. The Song of Healing will regenerate health for yourself and any nearby players. Epona's Song will summon your trusty steed Epona to you, saddled up and ready to ride the land. The Sun's Song will change the day to night, or the night to day, freeze any nearby undead enemies for 10 seconds, and change the weather to clear. And finally, the Song of Storms will allow us to conjure up a thunderstorm. So let's get started. First up is our item code for the ocarina, which will be a carrot on a stick so that we can use it for right-clicking. And don't worry, I've got an actual proper ocarina texture to go over it, so it doesn't look like we're just playing music through a carrot. And then we've got all this lore here that I'm just going to skip over for now, and I'll show you that at the end of the video. And finally, we'll apply this fake enchant to give the ocarina a unique item ID. Oh, and we'll also give it infinite durability with the Unbreakable tag, which will hide in the ocarina's tooltip using hide flags 4. Then we have a bunch of different variables here, which we'll get into later as they're needed in the code. Next, we'll track which player currently has the ocarina. 1 will be removed from Otion every tick for all players, and then here in these lines, Otion will be set to 1 for a player who has the ocarina in any slot in their hotbar or in their offhand. If they do have the ocarina, then the slot the ocarina is in that corresponds with one of these lines of code here will overwrite this line, and that player will maintain a consistent score of 1 in Otion. So if a player has 1 in Otion, then that means they have the ocarina somewhere on their hotbar or in their offhand. And this is good, but I also want to be able to specifically know when the ocarina is being selected by the player, which we'll use OT hold for. 1 will be removed from OT hold every tick, and if the ocarina is the current selected item, or if the ocarina is in the player's offhand, then these lines will overwrite the first line and give the player a consistent score of 1 in OT hold, indicating that they have the ocarina selected currently. Next up, we'll handle the ability to cycle through the 5 different songs that the ocarina will play. We'll have it so that if the player sneaks and right-clicks, they'll switch to the next song in the song list. So here we've got the objective Sneak, which will increment as a player sneaks, and right-click, which will increase when a player right-clicks with a carrot on a stick in their hand. If a player has 1 in OT Hold, 1 in Sneak, and 1 in right-click, then 1 will be added to that player's score in song mode. If this value reaches 6, then their score will automatically be set back to 1, since the 5 songs we have are represented by the values of 1 through 5. To indicate when the chosen song has been changed, a clicking sound will be played to the ocarina owner. To let the player know which song they have selected, a little notice in chat is going to appear to them. Here we have a block of code with formatted chat text for each song that you can play. It'll say song selected right here, and then just below that it'll say Song of Time. Above and below these 2 lines is a clear space with no text, just so that this message is easier to see in chat and just looks a bit more organized and not so cluttered. Then here we have the Song of Healing, then Epona's Song, the Sun's Song, and the Song of Storms. The message that appears in chat is dependent on what score the player has in song mode. So here where it's 1, it'll say the Song of Time is selected, here where it's 2, it'll say the Song of Healing is selected, and so on and so forth. And at the end of all of this, we've got 2 lines setting Sneak and right-click back to 0 when they are at least 1, so that these messages will only appear once per right-click. Now that we can cycle through songs, we can begin the groundwork of the effects that each one will have when we activate them. When a player holding the ocarina right-clicks with it while not sneaking, they will activate whichever song is currently selected, which will run a function called activate, which we'll jump into now. Most of the songs are going to have a cooldown period before they can be played again. When the Song of Time is activated, meaning that song mode is 1, if the player's score in Time Song Cool is 0, meaning that the cooldown period has ended, and they are not tagged with playing song, then Time Song Cool will be set to 3600. Then we've got the same type of thing for the other 4 songs, each one with a different scoreboard objective and cooldown timer associated with them. Down here we've got messages that will display in chat when each of these songs, excluding Epona and Storms, which I'll explain in a moment, are in cooldown and recharging. In the looped function, we'll be decreasing each of these objectives by 1 every tick, and once the score reaches 0, the song tied to that objective can be played again, indicated to the player by one of these messages displayed in chat. So as an example, given that 20 in-game ticks is equal to 1 real-life second, 3,600 ticks will result in a 3-minute cooldown before the Song of Time can be used again. The Song of Healing's cooldown is 10 minutes, while the Sun Song cooldown is 5 minutes. And technically, Epona's Song and the Song of Storms have cooldowns as well. However, they're so small that by the time the songs are finished playing, the cooldown will actually be over. And I just figure since these two songs' effects aren't particularly overpowered, it'd be fine if you can play them as much as you want. Whereas the other songs are a bit more powerful, and so they have actual cooldown times. When a song is activated, this function will also set a corresponding objective, those being Time Song, Heal Song, Epona Song, Sun Song, or Storm Song, to a certain value. Going back to the looped function and looking at the Song of Time, you'll see that these objectives are counted down by 1 every tick, with flute notes being played when the objective reaches certain values, resulting in a song being played that you can hear in-game. In this case, that being the Song of Time. And one last thing before we move on is adding the tag playing song when the player has activated one of the songs. And this will prevent more than one song from being played at once, which would be a little bit silly. Impressive, definitely, but also kind of silly and impossible, actually. Alright, now it's time to implement the effects that each song will have, and we'll start off with the Song of Time. This song will allow us to step back to our location from 7 seconds ago. What we'll need to get this to work is to have some kind of way for the game to constantly keep track of and save our locations, so that when we activate the song, it knows where it needs to send us. And fortunately, this is very achievable with the assistance of armor stands, so let's get to work on that. These stands will be tagged with Time Gary and then a number 1 through 7, and each one will add 1 to the objective Time Gary count. Just above that is a line that will constantly set Time Gary count to 0. These lines will always overwrite this line, so as long as there's a Time Gary present, Time Gary count will actually never be 0. So this is designed to keep track of how many Time Garys are currently present. If the number of Time Garys is ever less or greater than 7, then all the Time Garys will be killed off, and the tag spawned Time Garys will be removed from the player. But in order to have 7 Garys, we'll need to spawn them in the first place. When a player is holding the ocarina and they are not tagged with spawned Time Garys, they'll receive the tag Spawn Time Garys. From here, they'll spawn Time Gary 1, 2, 3, and so on up until 7. The stands are tagged with a generic OT Gary so that I can target them all at once, and a specific Time Gary plus a number 1 through 7, which I can use to target each of them individually. They'll also be small, which is just a personal preference for me. They'll have no gravity so that they can't fall when we teleport them around. They'll be invisible so they can't be seen, and they'll have all their slots disabled so that nothing can be placed on them. The player will then receive the tag Spawned Time Garys, and the tag Spawn Time Garys is removed. So basically, having the tag Spawn Time Garys means the player has not yet spawned in the armor stands, and they're about to do so. Having the tag Spawned Time Garys means the player has already spawned them in, and that it doesn't need to happen again, unless there are special circumstances, such as the number of Time Garys not being equal to 7. The Time Garys will also be killed off if the player ever takes the ocarina off of their hotbar, and the tag Spawned Time Garys will then be removed so that when the player places the ocarina back on their hotbar, they'll be able to spawn in a fresh set of armor stands. An objective called OT Time is going to help us teleport these armor stands to us as we move around in the world. Every tick a player has the ocarina in their hotbar, 1 will be added to OT Time. When OT Time reaches 140, it'll be set back to 0. So this represents a cycled period of 7 seconds, with one of the Time Garys being teleported to us every second, marking the places that we go. When OT time is 20, meaning that 1 second has passed, Time Gary 1 will be TP'd to us. When OT time is 40, meaning 2 seconds have passed, Time Gary 2 will be TP'd to us, and then so on and so forth for the other Time Garys. And they'll be teleported 200 blocks above us just so that they don't get in our way. When we're ready to play the Song of Time, and we activate it, our score in Time Song Cool becomes 3600, which will then cause particles to appear at our current location. Then, depending on our score in OT Time, we'll be TP'd to the Time Gary that represents our location from 7 seconds ago. So for example, if our score in OT Time is 110, then that means the last Time Gary to be teleported to us was Time Gary 5. We want to travel back 7 seconds in time, and because each Time Gary represents 1 second, you could say that we want to travel back 7 Time Garys in time. So, starting from Time Gary 5, we go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then loop back to 7, and end on 6. So that means that with a score of 110 in OT time, we would want to teleport to Time Gary 6. More particles will be generated on us after we've teleported, so this creates sort of a disappearing and reappearing effect with the particles. A teleporting sound will be played, and note particles will be generated around us while the song is being played. Then finally, we'll remove that tag playing song from the player once their score in Time Song drops to 1, indicating that they've finished playing the Song of Time, and now another song may be played. Okay, nice. So with one song down and 4 to go, we'll work on the Song of Healing next, which is actually going to be a lot more simplistic than the Song of Time. On use, the Song of Healing will heal the Ocarina owner and any nearby players for 5 hearts. Similar to before, 1 is removed from Heal Song every tick, resulting in these notes being played at different intervals to audibly create the song. After the song has finished playing, this sound will be played, some heart particles will appear on all players within 5 blocks, and a regeneration effect will be given to them as well. Again, these note particles will be generated on the Ocarina owner for the duration of the song, and the tag playing song will be removed. And that's actually going to be it for this song. I didn't lie. Like I said, it was really, really easy. So now we can move on to Epona's song. Epona's song is going to call Epona to us whenever we want, wherever we are. There are a few issues we do have to take care of though. I want to be sure there's only ever one Epona in the world at a time, so before we summon Epona, we're going to do a little check of sorts, teleporting any existing Epona down into the void and running a kill command to remove her from the world. However, if this happens while a player is riding Epona, they'll also be taken into the void as well. So just before this happens, this line will be run, which has the player teleported up 1 block from their current location, which will automatically dismount them from Epona and keep them out of the void. After we ensure no other Eponas exist, we'll summon a new Epona on the player, who is all tamed and saddled up to ride. The variant field determines what the horse will physically look like, and 258 is actually surprisingly close to how Epona looks in the Zelda games. And I've given her some above-average stats in health, speed, and jump strength to make her an all-round pretty good horse. Better than most of them, but not absolutely the best possible horse you can get. Next, I'm going to have it so that if no players are within a certain range of Epona, she'll wind up despawning. And this will prevent a player from summoning Epona, then summoning another Epona in a different part of the world, which would bypass these 2 lines we set up here, then coming back with that new Epona and having 2 at the same time. This line will constantly remove the tag player near from Epona, and then this line will execute a command from all players to add the tag player near to Epona if she's within a radius of 10 blocks. So long as a player is near, this line will always overwrite this one, and the tag player near will remain on Epona. If Epona does not have this tag, we'll then do the same thing we did before, teleporting her down into the void and killing her. And lastly, we've just got these 2 lines again. Next up, we'll do the Sun Song, which will turn the day into night or the night into day, freeze nearby undead enemies for 10 seconds, and change the weather to clear. In order to change the time of day to its opposite, we first need to know what time of day it is currently. We could use a daylight sensor and hook it up to some redstone and command blocks, though I have a different way that we can do this without the need to set up something like that. Zombies catch fire in the sunlight, so if a zombie is on fire, then that can tell us that it's daytime. So just after we activate this song, we'll summon a special zombie way up in the air that's invulnerable to damage so it can't die, persistent so it can't despawn, has no gravity so it can't fall, and is invisible so it can't be seen, and will constantly teleport this zombie above the Ocarina owner for the duration of the song. This next line will add the tag on fire to this zombie, and this one will remove the tag if the zombie's data tag fire is equal to -1. The data tag fire represents how many ticks remain until a mob that's on fire will no longer be on fire. When the zombie is not on fire, the data tag will always be -1. If it catches fire, this value will become higher than -1, and this line removing the tag on fire will no longer overwrite the line above it, causing the zombie to become tagged with on fire. The only way this zombie can be on fire is if the sun is out, and so if the zombie does have the tag on fire, then we know that it's currently day. Otherwise it's currently night. And now that we can tell whether it's currently day or night, we can change the time to the opposite. When the song is finished, we'll execute at the zombie to set the time to day. This line also executes at the zombie, setting the time to night, except the difference here is that it's checking for the on fire tag on the zombie. If it's currently night, the zombie will not catch fire, so it will not become tagged with on fire, and this line won't be executed. Instead, this line will run and change the time to day. If it's currently day, then the zombie will catch fire and get that tag, and set the time to night. The first line will actually still run as well, but because the time is set to night right afterwards, the command just winds up getting overwritten. Either way, after the time of day is changed, the zombie will be teleported into the void and killed off. Now, one tricky part of this, and actually as a matter of fact something I hadn't even realized until I was prepping this video, is when there's a rain or thunderstorm involved. And that's because if the weather is either one of those two, then the code will actually think it's nighttime, even if it's currently daytime, because undead can't catch fire during a storm. So in other words, if there's a storm currently present, then instead of changing the day to night, it'll just remain day, so we'll have to fix that. But we can do so by changing the weather to clear as soon as we activate the song, which consequently will actually take care of the third ability of the song. Then we just need to give the storm enough time to disappear so that the zombie can catch fire in the sunlight, and set the time of day appropriately. Unfortunately, even clearing the weather at the very start of the song doesn't always seem to leave enough time for the zombie to catch fire by the time Sun Song reaches 1, so we'll need an additional buffer of time, which is why Sun Song doesn't stop at 0, like with all the other songs. Rather, this will continue down to -65, which from my testing seems to always be long enough for the zombie to catch fire, and then set the day to night, even if a storm was present. With those two done, we can work on our last ability, freezing the undead. When the song is finished playing, all these types of undead mobs, excluding the Wither boss, just because I thought that'd be too overpowered, within a radius of 10 blocks will have their scores in sun freeze time set to 200, which will count down by 1 every tick. Their AI will be taken away, and they'll be made silent while they're frozen, and these two sounds will be played to indicate that the undead mobs near you have been frozen. And once sun freeze time reaches 1 for these undead mobs, they'll unfreeze and regain their AI and ability to make sound. And with that, after adding these last two lines as always, the Sun Song is complete, and we can move on to our last song, the Song of Storms. This last song will generate a thunderstorm on use, and, well, I do have to warn you. This will be the most complicated part of this video, so try to keep up if you can, but I won't blame you if you become lost, maybe enraged. It just makes you want to quit out of the video and just become engulfed in a mad chaos of anger. Okay, so first, we start off light. We have the notes that make up our song as always, but then here's where it gets really tricky. Are you ready? Maybe do you need to go do something first? Maybe make a sandwich. Get yourself prepared. Get ready. Okay? Okay. Pay very, very close attention. We're going to execute from the Ocarina player to change the weather to thunder. And, well, that's actually it. I lied. This part is very easy. Gotcha. Humor, hooray. And with that awesome joke, after adding these last two lines as always, we are completely done now, so let's go test this thing out. Alright, so here we are out in the majestic wilds of Hyrule Field, which I think is the perfect place to test out our brand new Ocarina of Time. So before we get started, you'll actually notice that the lore on the Ocarina isn't all purple like lore on items normally is, and that's actually because I used an outside program to change the colors around and just make the formatting look a bit cleaner and nicer, and obviously looking at this is a bit easier on the eyes than looking at a massive wall of purple text. Included in the download package in the description are some instructions as to how you can color the lore like this yourself, if that's something you'd like to do. And honestly, I'd kind of recommend you do that, just because if you compared this to a version of the Ocarina where the lore is just all purple, you can really see the difference in terms of presentation, and it just makes it easier to like space things out and see like, oh, this is that ability, this is that ability. It's just nicer in my opinion. I honestly kind of wish Mojang would include a way to do this in-game, but that's not important right now. But anyways, if we shift and right click, we can cycle through the different songs we can play, as you can see in the chat. And why don't we go ahead and test out the Song of Time first. So as a reminder, on use, this will send us back to our location from 7 seconds ago. So this could be good for saving yourself from a long fall, or quickly escaping out of a pit of lava that you've just stumbled into on accident, or maybe getting away from a big group of mobs that you've suddenly become surrounded by. So let's just say that falling from here would kill me, which obviously it wouldn't, But let's just say if it did, and I do this, I can save myself. And so there you could hear the Song of Time actually playing for us to hear. And then down in the chat, you'll see that it's letting us know that the song is now charging. We did also take a bit of damage there since we were teleported while we were falling, but that actually gives us a good chance to try the Song of Healing next. So this will heal yourself and other nearby players for 5 hearts. So actually, let me just damage myself up a bit more past 5 hearts, just to show that it does actually heal 5 hearts. Okay, so this should bring me up to 9 hearts. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, awesome. So this is pretty useful if maybe you're out of health potions, or otherwise it's just a nice, reliable way to have some health regen for yourself and other people you're playing with. Though it does have a 10-minute cooldown, just so it can't be spammed all the time, and is hopefully a bit more balanced that way. Then next up is Epona's song, which will call Epona to us. There she is. So she's got above average stats compared to your typical horse, so you'll find that she's better than most horses you'll come across, but not like the absolute best possible horse, just so she's not super ridiculously overpowered or anything. She's got good speed and health, and she can jump up to 3 block tall heights, which I can demonstrate here. And she does fall just a bit short of jumping over 4 blocks. And if we dismount and step at least 10 blocks away, she will despawn, as I'm calling it. Now I know it may look like that she turned red and sort of kind of fell over there for a second, like as if she died, but don't worry, she's fine. Don't even think about it. She's not dead. She's not dead. She's just temporarily misplaced. Okay, she'll be back. Don't freak out. It's all good. Definitely not dead. Up next is the Sun Song, but I'm actually going to skip over that for just a second here to try out the Song of Storms instead, which will quite simply create a thunderstorm. So if for some reason you just really fancy having a thunderstorm, you can do that. You can summon one. Or maybe you want the opposite, and you want to get rid of a thunderstorm, or whatever weather there happens to be. Which brings us to the Sun Song, which will be the last song on our list. And along with getting rid of the storm, it'll also freeze nearby undead for 10 seconds, and change day to night or night to day. Actually, before I set this off, I'll just walk over here and spawn some friends in. Hey, hello, how's it going? Hey Bob, looking good today? Okay, here we go. So you'll see that these guys are stuck in place, and they won't be able to chase after me for now. The storm is gone, and now it's nighttime instead of day. So it's pretty useful if you've got a bunch of undead mobs on you, and you need some breathing room, or a chance to get away or something, or maybe you want the time of day to change for some reason, or if you want clear skies with no weather. And that's going to do it for today, but thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw and you would like to give some feedback, well, I'd very much like if you hit the like button so that I know that you liked it. And if you did like it, want to see some more, well then you can feel free to subscribe to me as well, which I would equally like. And of course, if you've got suggestions for anything you'd like to see me make in the future, or if you've got any thoughts, feedback, or anything whatsoever, then you can let me know down in those comments. Thanks again, and until next time.